You ready to go there, Shona?
Yeah. Ready?
The meeting has been duly constituted, and the first order of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion? Thanks, and a second. Any add, subtracts, Ron?
Thank you, Carl. For item 6, unfinished business, if I can preempt A with A, and let's just call it financial commentary, and then we'll go through the other stuff.
So you don't want to receive the report
No,
under
we
A?
will receive the report, because then we're going to do discussion with the report, aren't we?
Yes.
So
So-
if I was going to lead the,
Because you preface,
I'm going to preface it,
preface remarks as
Yeah.
part of A. Okay, fine. But
So
all
which-
part of A?
yes, which, and the remarks will be a minute and a half.
Fine, thank you.
Sorry, that was under 5A,
So
6A.
6A.
6A, and then everything else drops one.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Got that, Shona?
Yeah, what was
Anything
the-
else?
What was the title?
It's just all
Financial
state.
commentary.
Financial commentary is A, and then everything else drops one.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, motion is on the table and it's seconded. Can I have all those in favour? And opposed? That carries. Next item on the agenda, public participation. Professor Ando.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have read the 2015 Reserve Balance Report, and I have a couple of questions. I'd like to know if the dollar values for the restricted capital and the unrestricted general funds are monies that are in the bank, or whether they're just numbers that are on a piece of paper in a computer.
Okay, well, as you typically know, we don't respond in the course, but as a special favour, we will respond.
And if you wait till my financial commentary, you'll get the answer.
Okay.
Okay, that won't take long. Thanks, Scott. Is that it? Okay.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Haley? No? Okay. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the CSC of March 3rd. Starting on page 3. Anybody?
I'm fine.
I had an issue with the item 7A3. The action item is just all wrong. Staff to review the resolution passed regarding fire department fund and reinvestigate the intent in order to bring forward to council before the budget.
For the audit,
Which audit?
BDO.
BDO audit, when they come in and do the audit.
No, it was for the budget, and it was nothing to do with banking.
But the CFO is going to have to discuss the request with the auditor to get the auditor's input with respect to this particular request and to determine whether or not there are any ramifications with the request and how it can best be accommodated.
Agreed. The action item is wrong.
What would you like it to say?
What was discussed, it'll be on the tape, but I imagine it's going to be something like the Fire and Rescue Fund rather than Fire Department Banking, and reinvestigate the intent in order to bring forward to council before the audit or before the budget, doesn't matter. I think before the audit's fine. It's got nothing to do with banking.
Okay.
So we're going to table this, please, until we see satisfactory action item there. So I move to table. Can I have a second? Thanks. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. So that supersedes the motion to approve the minutes. And we will now go through the action items report starting on page 11. 7, I beg your pardon.
Sorry, 1 second. Before you move on, what do you mean by supersedes the approval of the minutes? Are you not approving the minutes?
We've tabled approval of the minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so action items. Number 1, each committee member to consider what they feel will be a suitable cash award in-kind number to reach to and bring forward to the March 15th council strategy meeting. That would be the 22nd, but that's fine. Do we discuss that now or as part of the budget discussion?
I have
Pam?
a separate report on it, so I
Yeah,
think we could
let's defer to them.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think it satisfies, we're done now,
Yeah,
so it's all.
okay, so we can take that one off. Yes, good. Okay, you got that, Shauna? So that's complete. And then,
This ties into the minutes, the wording on this will change.
okay,
as
but
well.
assuming the minutes get corrected, the intent of this, this is an ongoing item, right, Pam? You didn't intend to bring it to this
Oh,
meeting?
no.
No, okay, fine. Okay, so that item number 2 will become item number 1 and we'll just continue on. Good?
Just not being picky isn't my nature, but it would appear that missing on the action item is to the left page, page 6, the top item number B,
Oh yeah, thanks for noticing that.
should slide over there, and that's.
Let's talk
exactly
about
as
that
it
one now.
says.
Shauna, can you add that as the future number 2?
Yeah.
Peter?
We're adding it as feature number
Well,
2.
no, can we, it's in the minutes, so what's the action there?
We're going to review this idea along with the idea of yeah, we're going to look at the
Have we done
the
it yet?
logistics.
So it's not
No,
been done
no,
yet?
it has not been done yet. No, there'll be some time required in order to do that. It's not as simple as it sounds because although we have a counter on this recorder, it does not correspond with actual real time. When you play it, it's compressed, and it's not a simple. It's there's some finicky things that will be involved if that's the route that we go. So we need to look at it carefully and determine what are the options, what are the pros and cons of each option, and what's the best way to move forward, and come back with a recommendation as to what we suggest for council to consider.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business, financial comments, Ron.
Thank you, and this is, I had spoken to the CFO this morning, which, to welcome her back. But this also fills in with Scott's question. Part of the financial calendar was a cash flow, and the cash flow was important for a variety of reasons, but one of the things that's being contemplated is the next item up, which is the reserve balances, as former councillor Ando has said, is that real cash, near cash, no cash. And so what the CFO revealed was that we hold a 700,000 GIC plus our ongoing current account balance, which I'm going to speculate is in probably the couple $100,000 range. And with half utilities being prepaid at the end of the month and the rest on the per normal non-discount, I think it's fair to say the mathematics are there that there's the better part of $1 million cash prior to seeing what the monthly outflow is. And Pamela advises that to do the cash flow beyond just these balance sheet items, council needs to decide on the rates for the general tax increase to fill in the revenue. That all being expected to be done in the next session or two, we should have a cash flow for the, if I do my math right, the 16th of April. That's
Okay, thanks.
Answer, Scott?
So the answer is, these are notional balances, not necessarily backstopped by cash. They are reserves, just like the monetary reserve of a country.
Yeah.
The
The non-gold standard.
non-gold standard, exactly. Everybody today,
Best example.
except Brunei, I think,
Yeah,
still on the
there we
gold
go.
standard. So if we were to fund all of these reserves, we couldn't fund all of these reserves today. This is money, past, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, past surpluses that have been earmarked as reserves.
There we go. And, sorry.
So do I take it down that there's a certain amount of liability we have there then? If we have these notional amounts, but we only have, say, $1 million, we're about 200 grand short on our notional amounts.
Could be more, we don't know what the AP are. I mean, there's the normal AP, and then there'd be the whatever project work we're doing and stuff like that. So I think that's where the cash flow is important, but in terms of, are we liquid, the answer is yes. Are we beyond just a small liquidity? Yes, we could write a check for several $100,000 tomorrow.
On the other hand, correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to liquidate, in principle, but you can't do it with a municipality, but if we were, in the end, this is how much money we'd have left over. Correct?
Not exactly, no. I mean, reserve balances generally don't equate to cash
No.
for any municipality. I mean, when you have your reserve balance, that doesn't equate to what you have in the bank.
No, I know that,
Yeah.
but if we were to liquidate everything beyond assets, all AP, all AR, all banks, all everything, and all receivables were in, and all payables would be paid, we'd have a surplus. Since this comes from surplus, this would have to match the surplus number.
No, because you're not taking into account your assets, your tangible capital assets. I mean, that's the bulk of your value on your balance sheet.
I think to your point, when you see the cash flow, the number will stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, not to get too far down the rabbit
Because the
hole.
liabilities are beyond there too, and you could add the long-term debt, which.
But so educate us, educate me anyway. How would we fund these reserves if we wanted to?
Well, I'm not sure we need to fund them. I
No,
mean,
how
if
do we
draw-
spend them?
Well,
If
when
you
you
were
do
to
your
fully
budget,
draw
if you
them.
say you're gonna, I mean, you would never fully draw your reserves, but the amount this year, we're saying we're gonna take X amount of dollars
No, I
from the
understand that.
reserves.
But this tells me that we have $1.136 million in reserves.
Mhm.
Let's say, for argument's sake, we decided to spend that all this year, bring our reserves down to zero. How
You'd
would we
have
do
to
that?
borrow,
We'd be short a few $100,000, I'd speculate.
and then you'd have to borrow.
Yeah.
So where does that couple $100,000 come from? Why isn't it available to us?
Because it doesn't, your reserves don't equate to cash. So you would basically, you'd have to borrow. I mean, you would never liquidate all your reserves, ever.
That's
But-
hypothetical.
But if you did, and the amount you were shortfall, you'd have to borrow for.
Reserve's not a balance sheet item.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just a notional number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Money's been earmarked and that's about it.
yeah,
It's basically,
Yeah.
yeah.
you can budget to physically put money into reserves, or it's your surplus that flows through
Yeah.
every year.
Okay, that's good. So just one salient, interesting point, and it's done deliberately, is you will see that the water balance is a negative 241. That is to show that we have actually overspent our water fund, such as it is, by $250,000 by borrowing from the general fund. Which means that we would have some catch-up to do if we were to actually bring the water fund into neutral balance.
There you go. And just to finalize my piece, Carl, two things. One, I've reworked the numbers that I'd given council on what a potential tax increase, a general tax increase would look like. So as we go through this, I can update the
Good.
written Excel spreadsheet. And the last item for council, part of the discussion today will be about the fire department. I would suggest that we take an opportunity to discuss this at a later time.
Very good, thank you. I don't think we'll need a resolution on that, we'll just take it on the nod.
Yep.
Good, thank you. So Pam, over to you.
Yes, the reserve balances, this is very similar to the report we looked at the last committee.
Can I just interrupt?
Sure.
Has it changed much from what we saw before?
Yep, the only change is in the amount of the rebudgets. They've been reduced by $5,000 because the Public Works Manager requested a $5,000 rebudget for, to be drawn from last year's water contingency budget
Okay,
for PRB pressure sensor lines, which would provide additional SCADA information. So we rebudgeted that. So that's the only tweak.
okay, good. So no real surprises there compared to what we've seen before?
So basically, as we had discussed in more depth at the last meeting, the amount available without changing the reserve balance as predicted in the last year's budget is $192,000. That's not to say we have to spend all that. We could spend more or less, but that would keep us even with what we had estimated last year.
Yeah, and if you're following along, that's the bottom
That's the
right
bottom,
cell in the table.
192,565.
And Pam, I think we discussed offline that if we were to employ a last in, first out principle for funding last year's budget, this being the surplus, 192, you could say that if we were to take the money that we would have drawn from reserves and put it back into reserves, all but about 30,000 of this would have been reserve funding, and only 30,000 would have been taxed for out of last year's budget.
Yeah, I wasn't quite able to completely verify that.
Okay, but that's sort of the number.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the number comes out in the wash. You see that the budget transfer is 179. Let's make it 180 versus 192. So that the delta is actually 22,000. Where does that come from? They came from last year's taxes. So we taxed for $22,000 of that 179 surplus. The rest would have come from reserves, but it didn't, because we didn't draw it from reserves. It's on sort of a last out, first in, I don't know what it is, principle.
Yeah.
Because we would have spent the tax money first and then started drawing on reserves, but we didn't. So bear that in mind as we contemplate our 2016 budget in terms of what we may deem prudent to take out of reserves for 2016. Good. Anything else on that report?
Nope, that was it.
So,
pretty much unchanged.
Motion to receive and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour of receipt and opposed? That carries. And preliminary budget, page 11. Pam.
So again, similar to the report we looked at the last Council Strategy Committee, there were a couple of changes. We took a further look at legal expenses and felt we could reduce the legal expense by $10,000. In terms of the other capital rebudgets, there's the $5,000 which we spoke of. And then we had discussed this change at the last meeting, but we hadn't flown it through the numbers. It was $17,500 of water consulting expenses that we felt could actually come from the operating budget. So we didn't need to include it in the supplementals. So the net impact is we have $22,500 more as a surplus with a 5% tax increase before the supplementals or additional capital have gone through. So that's really the only change from the last report we saw. So there was the 5,000 here.
Is
which flows
the
through.
fact that it's the same delta as the delta between last year's spend and this year's surplus, is that just coincidence?
Well, this number comes up to here. Like this is just a breakdown of
Yeah,
how
but
it
I mean,
happened.
192,565. 179,703. Oh, 12,000. My math not right. Okay, scratch that because I would have been concerned if it was the same. Okay, thanks. So what do we want to do about this, colleagues?
51 is better, 76 is better than 51,
Yes, yes.
and not much else to say.
Okay, do we want to, I mean, most of this flows through.
It's really just flowing to show how much money you have when you make your discussion about municipal grants and supplementals.
Yeah, so do we do that now, or does that
Yes.
come next?
That's the next report.
Okay, so
this
motion
is
to
just-
receive the preliminary budget and a second. Further discussion? All in favour of receipt? Opposed? That carries. So, Pam, page 25, correct?
Yes. This is, again, a continuation of the last Council Strategy Committee meeting, municipal grants. So the request is that Mayor and Council review the request for municipal grants and make a decision on what they will approve, and then I can put it into the budget.
Okay, thanks. So one of the action items out of the CSC last time was to mull over this individually, which I trust we have all done. So, Ron, why don't we start with you?
The total ask is $33,000. I am fine with all 33,000 for all of the grants requested. The two that drew a certain amount of attention were the Lions Bay Arts Council and the Lions Bay Play School Association. I think Pamela had some in-kind information she was going to bring to the table on the play school, so if you have it.
Well, basically, it wasn't so much in kind as the rent that they would be paying, because there was some question about waiving the rent. For 2016, based on the reduced usage, they're now down to one room instead of two rooms, because we believe there's only 3 children in before school care. The total revenue, or the total rental expense for them for 2016 would be $2,940. if that was, I mean, that was one of the things that was discussed, rather than giving them the request, is just waiving their rent. And
Well,
that's
I
what
would,
it
I would consider that an in-kind grant, not a waiver.
Well, it's similar.
It's revenue that
Yeah.
we're giving up, in theory, were there
Yeah,
another
exactly.
tenant.
It's left pocket, right pocket, so.
Yeah.
okay.
So then if I, 6538.
Minus 2940.
2940, Pam, is round numbers, a cash request of $3,600. Do you concur?
Yes.
That's, okay.
What is the exact number, Ron?
3598.
Okay, 36. Okay, good. So
And-
that brings us, takes another 3,000, that brings us down to round numbers, $30,000 grant request.
And so, Pam, back on this one, so, you'd said that they shrunk their stuff, but we're on a, near the end of the school year. If they double their enrollment next year in September, when the little ones turn up here, does that make a difference?
Well, from September to December, it would be 1,120, so it would literally double that if their enrollment. If they have more than 5 children, then they have to rent both rooms, and that would increase it by $1,120.
So this 2940 is current usage through December.
Yes,
So
December
3,
2016.
September, October, November, December, 4 school months in the new school year and the remaining
And the
school months.
remaining this year, yes.
Okay. Well,
So,
If that comes up, then
they'll just come again.
we'll rebudget, yeah.
Okay, so maybe in our, depending on where this goes, so the response would be if they're fortunate enough to increase their enrollment, they should come early.
Yeah, let's make no mistake. This is, on an individual basis, on a year-to-year basis, it's the Play School Society, but and I believe it's society, not association. But be that as it may, this is a strategic element of Lions Bay's future, and it behooves us to ensure that it survives. And if this is what it takes, this is what we'll need to do.
If I might continue on this, I think for me, the piece is, I view it as important. I think that this is a group that I recognize that it's only the second time in 40-odd years that they've come forward, so on balance, I think that's a good percentage. Last time it was pretty clear why. This time, I think they're short the amount, which looks in real cash $3,600. To me, when I thought about this, I think that in terms of the value to the community, I looked at the 2 primary realtors that are in our neighborhood, and the first thing I see is a 3-minute video of the school. And I think if I'm a prospective buyer and a young family, that's what I'm looking to. Care comes with that, so I kind of read into that. I think that the Play School Association should be coached to do a little bit more reporting or thinking about their Santa's breakfast, which they showed as a profit of $500. I was lucky enough to attend, but I was only one of north of 200 people. So again, I'm just going to say they should be coached on that one, because it looks like not only is it a huge community event, but it's an opportunity to be their fundraiser as well.
So do you think the $500 they report in their budget is light?
I'm not
For
in a position
2016?
I don't know anything about it. I know that I got them a sponsor, so the cost of the items was, the food items, and coffee was given away by another resident.
The point is, if there's $1,000 less hole in their budget than they are proposing.
I'm prepared to go that I'm drawing a circle around it this year for next year. If it was $500, I would ask more direct questions.
Okay.
And I think lastly, I think that they've been quite forward on this, that it's a genuine care situation. And without going into the bigger picture, this is something that many families face in Metro Vancouver, so welcome to life. So I would be yes on that, as is, for the reasons that I gave, short of the in-kind or whatever we're calling it, so it comes to $3,600 cash. For the Arts Council, I think that they have traditionally done fundraising. They've also obtained sponsors in different shapes and sizes. Previously, Odlum Brown. Currently, I saw they got a grant on their own initiative. I think that I read in here they are talking about doing an Oktoberfest fundraising event here too. I know that they front for many of the groups in the village in terms of signage and things like that. I think being a very large group at north of 225 and growing, plus probably doing the largest commercial piece in the village, which is the Christmas fair, which I'm sure got more than 200 people in. I think that we're actually rewarding the people who are doing stuff. I think there was some discussion about maybe paring them back on banners. That might be a little bit late because they've just put out the request for banners. And lastly, for them, not to put the kiss of death on this, but I think I just found them a sponsor, being Fresh Street for their events. So that should help them. Again, for them, I think that with a variety of these things coming to pass, I would think that their requests would be less next year.
What about this year? The funding is for this year?
Fundings for this year?
Did we not ask for them to consider gaming grant funding for this year? Which, if I have it right, community groups fund in August, maybe November, but 2016 anyway.
I thought that the gaming grants was Helen's idea, which came forward in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and and this would be for the CFO to consider whether we can stipulate for it in future grants.
I'm talking about this year.
I don't know whether they can do it or not this year. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah.
Do they not require society status? To
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, the Arts Council is a society.
Arts councillors, yes.
You
They are.
specifically said,
Yeah.
yes, you do. I just happen to be going through this right now for West Van Little League, so I would happen to know what the sports deadlines are. I think the community group deadlines are, anybody know? Sometime. Sports deadline is May, and I think the community groups are later. I would take a flyer and say, we expect them to get a grant, and at least apply for it. Nominal this year, more substantial next year.
I would be fine with going with their amount that they request, because that's the bird in hand. I would also stipulate that the condition is that they apply for a grant. Because if they get the grant, then they'll need less next year.
Unless they happen to spend it.
Their budget is before us, we would be questioning that.
Yeah. Well, questioning our part in the funding thereof, yeah. Okay, that it?
That's it for me.
Good, thank you. Fred?
Okay, the bottom bunch I have no issues with at all, right up to and including Lions Bay Events Committee. I think they're all value adds to the community. I'm a little uncomfortable with the senior social circle amounts. They seem a little high. I'm not, even though I've read through their material, I'm not convinced it needs to be that high. I don't know. Maybe it's not fair for me to say. I really don't know. Their in-kind is rather high. I mean, they need the facilities, so if their facilities are covered, I don't know. I'm okay with that. Not to play the black sheep in this one, but the Lions Bay Play School Association one still concerns me. By my reading, they need an in-kind of about $29.40. I think the CFO was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think the actual grant money, I know we've discussed this before, but it just sticks in me that the amount of money they're asking for and the amount they want to put into reserve is just too similar for my comfort zone. And I do not think the taxpayers of Lions Bay should be funding a reserve. And if they are putting in a reserve, they don't need our money, I don't think. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is that we do have a culture change in our community, and I'm not entirely happy with it. We have people coming in with buying high value homes, and they seem to think everybody has to be working now in order to pay for it, so you have to have care for your children, so both parties can go off at work. Well, that's not the way we've done things in Lions Bay, and I think it was Lisa Turpin in one of her comments had mentioned the history behind it.
we all brought our kids up through the Play School Association. We all donated our time. We all donated money too. We paid our way. When we moved into here, we were paying 12% mortgage on our property. We were paying 11 and a quarter on the condo we had downtown until we sold it so we could finish building our house. Things weren't as easy back then as people make it out to be. And I think we found the bucks. We found the time. My wife stopped working years after we moved in here, but she worked occasionally. We juggled our time. We made it work is the bottom line, and it kind of bugs me that people now expect things on the platter, that we the taxpayers who've already been paying out for this are now asked to pay for them so that they can go off and make a double income salary. It's not sitting well with me, and I'm okay with the in-kind, give them the space, but I'm not okay with the grant funding, the rest of it, period.
Okay, do you want to name some numbers or talk about it tonight when we bring that, we can simply bring that sort of philosophical recommendation to council?
Well, I'm okay with the 2940 and the in-kind, but zip for the grant.
Okay,
You know, it's a nice round number.
yeah, that's a round number. And Arts Council, did you have any feelings there?
Well, just a question about that. We've got the 800 of in-kind. Was the original grant ask not 7,800 before? I thought the 800 would have been taken from it.
No, they want the 7,800 cash. They hadn't put a value on their in-kind, so we had missed that, so we had to go back and put it in.
That's right, and I've got their application here, their amount requested is the 7,800 and they asterisk, and then mention non-monetary nature of fee waivers and staff assistance. So,
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so the 78 is a cash number.
78 is cash.
Yeah, I don't have much problem with the Arts Council at all, because I think they really add value to the quality of life in Lions Bay with all the stuff they put on, and it's good for everybody in the village, not just a select few, so I'm easy with that one. Well, I shouldn't say easy, I do have a problem that we're giving out 30,000 bucks roughly in grants when we're sucking for cash. But you know, we can't cut our nose off to spite our faces either. So when people are doing good work for the community, I think we need to support them.
Yeah, certainly as far as it impacts the community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks Fred. Helen?
Well, for me, it's going to be a yes, because I believe all these groups provide insights to community with regards to the program and activities that they put forward.
Just move that behind. Just hang on a sec, Helen. We're not getting very good reception here. Maybe feedback. Try again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I was echoing on my part as well. How do I,
It's better now,
is it?
yeah?
A little bit, anyway. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to take me off. Can you hear me?
That's better. Yeah, I think you were feeding back on your side.
Oh, okay. So I'm a yes, because I do believe that all these groups provide immense value to our community via the programs they provide or the activities. And yes, we can reduce some of the numbers, but that would only equate to a reduction of what activities they're providing. But because they're doing it already on a volunteer basis, it goes back to what I was saying, that it's such great value in itself. And apart from that, it's great value to the community as a whole. So I'm going to say yes.
For everything, Helen?
Yes, for everything. But with the caveat that what we had discussed earlier, that they need to be certainly seeking additional funding, especially through the gaming grant, and maybe other fundraising opportunities. Because I know personally for the events committee, they were working on a shoestring budget many years ago, and that really was a deterrent for people to keep on volunteering and helping out. So now with more financial support from the municipality, there's been a rejuvenation in the enthusiasm with regard to the group. So I don't want to see that dampened.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, you know, if you're going to do this dispassionately, you probably need to assign a number, a value to the heads served or the membership. But then people like the Arts Council and the Events Committee serve far more than just their membership. They support a far wider thing. So, you know, it's somewhere it's a guess really. For me, I would suggest that we certainly break down the Play School Association's ask to the 2940 in-kind grant and reduce the cash by an equivalent amount, and then in fact reduce their cash grant by a further I'm talking about the Arts Council, by $2,000. Hold their feet to the fire and say they have to get that from the gaming grant, or not, as the case may be. And yes, if they don't get the gaming grant, then there'll be $2,000 less on the budget this year, and they'll have to pull something in. This is, as Fred says, a tough year. I don't think we can be lashing out cash that we're going to have to tax for when there's far better needs for it that will serve a wider audience. So, in summary, I would like to see the Play School Association's award split between the in-kind and the actual, reducing the cash award by $29.40 and reducing the Arts Council by $2,000. That's a nominal number. I would suggest they could probably qualify for more than that. I don't know how they predicate these grants. For a reduction of about $5,000 in the award. So we're not making any decisions now. This discussion takes place, but I think that airs the laundry, more or less. Is that correct, Pam?
Yes, with the hope that the decision would be made tonight.
And so the decision will be made tonight. It has to be, in fact.
Yes,
But-
yes. The absolute latest would be April 5th, but it would
Yeah.
be better.
I think we've talked about it enough now. I think we all know what we mean and where we're coming from. So we've got a few hours before we take a vote on this this evening. So we'll leave it at that. So did we do a motion to... No, we didn't do the receipt and this motion to receive.
And refer it to tonight's meeting.
Yeah, okay. And a motion to receive and refer to tonight's meeting. Thanks. And second, all in favour, opposed, carried. So that's that, and we'll move straight on to the supplemental budget request. Pam, fire away.
Again, just continuation from the last meeting, a list of the supplementals with the hope of going through and pretty much deciding on what recommendation you'd want to make for council and what would be approved for the 2016 budget.
Okay, good. So let's do this pretty quickly. You get a short time to say your piece. Let's do it page by page. So I'll start with Ron on the fire department budget. Go.
That would be page
29.
29, thank you. I think the total fire department request for 72,987, it's fine, and that's all I'm ready to say at this time.
Okay, thank you. Fred?
I'm okay with most of it, although as I look at the 24-2 for increased shift payments, I see that as a notional amount, because when I look over the numbers, they have numbers there were numbers listed in it, they're no longer there. So, and they were sort of high per hour value versus loans that could come in to replace them, but I think we're only talking about a $2,000 difference, thereabouts. I don't know. Still have a few issues about that might need to be resolved in the next few hours, but for the rest of it, I'm fine.
Helen?
Yes, I'm in agreement with Fred. In general, I'm good with it.
Fine, thanks. And I'm fine with all these numbers too, although I would like to stipulate in our approval of the shift payment number is that some proportion of that comes from fundraising. So they don't get to spend the fundraising on other things. Maybe half of the increase, such as it turns out to be, needs to be earmarked to the fundraising numbers, because it is something to do with a sort of a staff appreciation, morale building type exercise,
Yeah, good point.
which would take a rebudget because the fundraising number just goes into the income, right, and is currently spent on things.
Right.
Yeah.
We have an in and out, and we can discuss this further at the closed meeting.
Okay, fine. So, in principle, we're good on that number, the $73,000 number.
At this time.
Okay. Moving on to page 30, the general government number, 77, all the sevens. Ron.
I'm fine as it sits.
Fred.
Yeah, the first few numbers still stick me, and I kind of wonder if our IT people
should sharpen their pencils. It just seems an awful lot of money for a computer and the operating costs. But then my wife and I run our house on a shoestring, and we would pay roughly half that for the same service. So I have some issues, but not enough to make an issue.
Okay, thanks. Helen?
Actually, I have a question with regards to I think this was discussed at the last meeting, but I wasn't there and I couldn't find a straight answer. And that's with regards to the office assistant. What is this job description?
I don't know if we brought it forward. It was in the last. Sorry.
Yeah, it was in closed, wasn't it?
Yeah, we discussed it in closed. But it's generally doing general office, a redistribution of the workload, and then to also be able to do council's strategic objective of improving communication.
Okay.
Helen, on this specific piece, if you wanted to just let it sit for the moment, it will come back.
In a different discussion.
In a
Sure, I
different
mean,
discussion.
it's public. Eventually, this person, if we decide to go for it, will be advertised to the wide world on the internet. So there's no real secret as to what this person is going to be doing. But it talks to an overall funding strategy that we haven't discussed yet, and will be done in closed. So let's leave it at that. So Helen, you're iffy on the office assistant until further information, and good for the rest.
And I'm also iffy on the CRA audit results, the extra 20,000 for that person, because I'm still not sure what that's for.
Oh, we don't have a choice on that. That is the CRA will. It's not the CRA. The CRA is neither here nor there. That's the potential increase in compensation.
Closed meeting.
Well, then what's it doing in open?
What?
Well, it's always been here.
Why?
We've discussed it.
So that'll come back, Councillor Watterson, if you want to park it for the moment.
Okay, so
Okay.
park it, and I've got a list for you, Helen.
Okay.
Okay. I'm fine with it as it is.
Okay.
So that's that. We'll now move on to the supplemental requests on page 3.1. Does this go over? No, it all fits on one page very nicely. Ron.
For me, and this would be a discussion, and it's great that Haley's here. I think that we've got the Central Beach washroom for $5,000, which I think the idea was to do the barest of bare upgrades, and I'm thinking for this kind of deal, we're talking about broken latches, doorknobs, and making sure everything's in repair. And I think Haley advised that we had some kind of a painting budget. I can't believe we don't have a painting budget in the village. So if all we're going to get here, and I think Peter weighed in on this one again from memory, is that this would be a tough one to contract out. So given that there's several months of lead time here, I'm thinking here, and I'll look for guidance from the CFO and the CAO, if we took the $5,000 out and put that as a reasonably high priority paint and repair to the works department, given 2 months of warning, could we strike the $5,000?
Okay, thanks. That's it.
And I'm looking for 2 nods here.
Everybody gets from staff.
Well,
So
unless
what you suggest
unless my
is
thinking
Public
is
Works.
way out there.
That Public Works just put it into their work.
Put it in
They
their
do the
project
painting.
list.
There may be a materials cost, but
Pennies. I'm sure that,
do you know what paint costs?
well, Sherwin-Williams just bought Valspar, so it's going
I mean,
on.
we did confirm we had $1,000 that in deferred revenue that could be used for that.
Okay,
So that
so
would
we're-
cover the pennies of the paint cost.
Pennies of the paint cost. Okay, well, I've seen the building. I think unless there's objection, I would strike the 5 and just put it to a works department action plan.
Okay.
And I'm aware that I'll be asking when it's your turn, Councillor Watterson, on parking committee recommendation. So, sure, 5 out for me, and subject to what Helen says on the 40, so 91.5 less the adjustments.
Good, thanks, Fred.
Top one, I still have trouble with the poster printer and cartridges for $2,000. I think it's a great idea, and I support the idea, but there's a couple of issues. Again, we're really short of cash. Our printers could get all our printing done this year for less than that. And staff have said repeatedly, we don't have the space for it. So I would advocate we strike that one. The other one down, I'm a little unclear on the new signage for the parking committee recommendations. Again, as Ron has suggested, I'd leave that to Helen. But I'm not sure if that's a known number. Are we sure of that? Or if, I don't know where the parking committee's at on this, whether they've made decisions.
Helen, I'm sure, can tell us as the chair of the parking committee next, so let's leave that to her in a minute.
Okay, that's it for me then.
Okay, thanks, Helen.
Okay, I guess I'll go into the 40,000 request for the parking plan. The status at the moment is that we're not ready to present a plan. We're still very much at draft stage, and I don't think that we'll be ready to present and have anything implemented by this summer. So, as Carl has pointed out, I wouldn't want to tax a resident for something that may not happen this year, especially in light of our current financial situation. So, what we could do, or what the committee is recommending, is that we do increase the bylaw officer's hours. That directly responds to what was the data that we gathered from our survey, and what the residents were, one of the solutions that the residents were hoping for with regards to our parking concern. So that would be actually a nominal increase from last year's budget.
Do you have a number in mind?
Well, Ron and I were working through the numbers, and actually doesn't, Ron?
Yeah, actually, if I,
what the final, it didn't seem that much more.
just give me 2 seconds and I'll have the reference page for council. The reference page is 17 of 36, which shows the current 2016 budget for bylaw salary at 14.5. And I think, Helen, your suggestion to me was, instead of the 40, we make that 5, which would take us round numbers to 20 for the bylaw officer. And so if council just holds that number in mind, Helen's suggestion, and this is just mathematics, that using an 8-hour shift, saying 3 to 11, from June the 15th to September the 15th for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 32 hours times $40 an hour times 4 months, and I come up to just under 16 grand for that. So that, I'm sorry, I couldn't write it out fast enough.
Yeah.
I can redo the numbers here while we're talking, but long story short, Helen's piece was the bylaw strong and effective Thursday to Sunday inclusive, and then some during the rest of the week.
Okay, so the Thursday, as opposed to Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I'm not on the committee,
Yeah.
but I've got 2 members who are, so I'm gonna guess that this is the chair's suggestion. And to a certain extent, we're just playing hours and numbers here.
Mhm.
So,
Currently it's budgeted for 15 hours a week, so what would that increase be?
So-
8,
it's 32.
so it's more than doubling.
It's more than, how did I get, well, I took his, okay.
So Pam, your 15 hours a week, is that the 2014 number, or is that the 2015
It
number?
was the actual 2015 number before the hours were increased, so it was Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
Before the hours were
Before the
increased.
hours were increased.
Yes.
And after the hours increased, what did we have? How many hours did we have coverage?
They added all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and Mondays. I don't know, it was a bit unclear.
We could do this a different way. could you round out what his hourly is? Just to pull a number?
Calculator. So we're talking about an increase of 17 hours a week times, I think it was about,
Is approximately 25 plus benefits, you can try another 27, it's about 20.
Should we call it 30 for round numbers?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so then the question is, at $30 an hour, and Helen's suggestion was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that's
Increases.
32
so
hours.
17 hours more.
Yeah, so it's $30 times 32 equals 960 a week for just that 4-day period.
Mhm.
Um,
And then 4 months is about 18 weeks.
18 weeks, let's call it 18 grand. So.
But we already
it-
have some money in the budget, so if you just did it on the differential, like you're proposing 17 hours more a week.
I think that to the spirit of this, again, just playing with the math here, I mean, I'm not on the parking committee and I don't have a personal view on Thursday versus another day, or we spread the hours around. But just looking at a number, if the 14.5 number went to 20 as a round number,
So we're looking about $6,000 increase.
so it's okay, so just using it, so we're taking the 40 out, 40 goes away, gets reduced to 5. In essence, the 5 goes over to
The extra
bylaw.
hours.
Okay, Helen, does that meet with your view?
I think in general, yes, because the committee hasn't actually sat down and discussed the hours or the days. But I would believe that everyone feels that we do need to increase the bylaw enforcement and particularly the bylaw officer. Hopefully that would also relate to an increase in perhaps fines and revenues.
Yeah,
So that could be offset.
It didn't last year. I think when I did my final report, we showed that the ticket collection happens on the Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, and the Monday stats. And the extra hours that we had on the Wednesday, or the Tuesday or Wednesday, the Wednesday, Thursday, actually didn't add very much revenue. Very few tickets were written then. It seems to
Yeah,
just
that's
be on the
what-
weekends. So I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, not to deter you, but there will be very little extra revenue by having weekdays of the bylaw officer.
That's why we're suggesting, well, for sure, definitely Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then maybe with, maybe if we have the money, then perhaps Thursday. But we haven't done research on to see which days are the busiest.
Oh, no, I understand. All I'm saying is I think we should just look at it in terms of an extra cost, that I don't think there would be a big increase in revenue. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to have extra hours for a bylaw officer, but I don't know that would be a lot of additional
Fine revenue is not one of them.
Yeah.
Although, didn't we triple our fine revenue over budget in 15?
We did, only because we only had a bylaw officer the year before for about a month and a
Okay,
half,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
also didn't pursue collections. So that was a big, because we're on a cash basis, we only record it when we receive it.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thanks. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, I can live with removing the $2,000 poster printer as long as we spend $2,000 on poster printing. I would suggest that the poster printer would give us more flexibility, but the resistance is such that if we just change the name of that line item to poster printing rather than poster printer, I'd be fine with that.
But council's got referring back to our little, sorry, I thought there was something to do with communications or something.
This would have been extra,
Okay,
because we never stretched the posters
okay,
before.
I retract.
Council
Go back to
communications,
sounds. Yeah, yes.
page 15.
As to the rest,
Okay,
So if you bump that, I don't know.
well, so that's page 15 of 36.
no, this
so-
would not be council communication, this would be municipal communication, a medium that we don't currently use. Given that the email has apparently, I still am missing the actual data, apparently we've gone from about 520 email addresses on our distribution list to 320, the last I heard.
No. As I think I mentioned previously, we still send to the same amount of email addresses, which is roughly 500 and something. But the number that are opened and read, that we have that information back on, is more like 350. That was the the nuance in those numbers.
Okay, well, you can never guarantee who's going to open, and I know for a fact that I don't send a reg receipt because I specifically suppress it. So the only number that we can rely on is the number in the database.
So that hasn't changed.
Okay.
So, Carl, you want the number but styled differently, I mean, versus the asset. I mean, Fred doesn't want the asset, you want the service.
I want the service.
Poster printing,
Yeah.
$2,000.
Fred, where are you on the service?
Yeah, I could agree with that. Part of the problem with the hardware too is a friend is in the printing business where he does big stuff, and one cartridge is about $150, and he runs about 15 cartridges, 15 or 12.
Yeah, they're
So
expensive.
they're really expensive to maintain, and I think I'd rather offset the liability onto somebody else if that sounds a little too crude.
I'll
But
That's
mediate.
fine.
Carl, if you're fine, we're on.
Yeah, fine. That's fine. All I want is the posters. I don't care how they're done, as long as we have the posters and a communications policy around
See,
when a
the
poster gets
Arts
generated.
Council be your new best friend.
Okay, so a few more on this one. The geospatial survey markers, I'd like that to move to the public works budget. It's got nothing to do with council. It was happened to
Yeah,
be.
we can fiddle with that after. There's
Yeah.
some.
Okay, same for the next
yeah.
one. Public works radio equipment. That doesn't really matter where it is, but it would be better housed.
It'll go to the correct
Okay,
department.
good, thanks.
but it's-
So then Pam, you'll take notes, I'm keeping
Yeah.
the gross number, so, okay?
I'm fine with Ron's reduction of the 5,000 to 0 or some nominal number within budget. 40,000. I'm with Helen. It's not going to happen this year, so I think that should be taken out entirely. I think the bylaw increase is not a parking issue. I don't want to peg it to the parking plan at all. It's simply a bylaw increase to increase service coverage. Don't forget the bylaw officers don't only do parking. They do outdoor water use. They do outdoor burning. They're bylaw enforcement.
So in the spirit of the number is the number,
I'm happy to do a $6,000 increase in the general government number for bylaw enforcement.
okay, so notionally for me, keeping track, so the 40 becomes 6 and we just restyle it somewhere else.
Sure, if you're just keeping track of
I'm just
the
keeping track.
cash number. But I specifically would prefer not to see any budget for parking plan. That is not going to happen this year under the current methodology that we've used to approach it. And then it's sort of just a presentation thing, Pam. This $53,000. I presume that's sort of a gas tax allocation.
It is.
It just needs to come out of here. It's
It's
not
just
a
that-
request.
It isn't, but it's just a reminder that we get the revenue and we're required to put it into a capital reserve if we
Fine.
don't spend it, so.
It's
there's still
nominal.
a cost.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, good. So that all well noted and all. Ron,
Yeah,
what have we saved?
5 grand. Oh, sorry,
Can
no,
you give me a
sorry,
running
no.
total?
So it was 91.5 less 34 less 5, so almost 40 grand.
Okay, moving on to page 3.2. Ron,
3.2.
Let's do the two together, 'cause these are all public works.
I am fine, but I'm looking at my two infrastructure committee brothers on the drainage roads, the 36 and the 40 surveys, engineering, design, expensive and going north. So I will say fine, and I'm listening to a recommendation. Listening for a recommendation.
Fred?
what I've done today is I assimilated Nikki's information with what she's put on here, with the feedback I'm getting from the infrastructure committee. And on the choice, I've prioritized them as to what I believe the infrastructure committee is leaning towards. I put it to everybody to say, give me at least two priorities. And there's been a fair amount of silence, so I'm taking the conversation around the table as indication of where everybody's going with it. And this on-table thing I had up for tonight is where my take on it is where I think the infrastructure committee would be leaning for us to fund. Now, they're not advocating every one of the 9 items listed, sort of just the priorities of the urgency of what needs doing. A little bit of tweaking there could take place as well. For example, the number 9 feasibility study for alternate access for driveway at 325. Quite frankly, I don't think that's going to happen. The homeowner doesn't want it. I don't see it's feasible, quite frankly, just with a resident nearby. We've already stricken the drone, so I think we're down to 7. And if we could get
if we could afford 4 or 5, that's fine. But again, this is a very tight budget year, and I'm very cognizant of the cost of tax increases on the community. So that's the closest I think the IC could come to a recommendation, and as soon as I wrote it using Nikki's figures, that's pretty well my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Helen?
Actually, I really do. Sorry, I'm gonna turn this down again. So Fred, I'm not sure what does that mean?
Oh,
Which programs are you, so does the IC recommend what's being put forward now?
no, they've what they've done is we've done is pretty well prioritized the list. And I'm sorry, I should have emailed you a copy of this. I can do that after the meeting this afternoon if you want to see it for tonight. But it's just a list of some of the top projects that were recommended for 2016. We haven't even talked about 2017 or beyond, but just what are the most important things to be done in sequence or in order of importance, with the idea that council would look at it, determine what we can afford to move on, what we can't, and then reprioritize it according to council's wishes.
So is this reflected in this budget that we're looking at right now?
To a certain extent, not all of them match.
Some of them are.
So I suggest what we do is, so that we can, because
Well-
it somewhat matches, let's stick with the one that's in the package.
Okay.
Well,
So-
even on the bridges, I'm doing the math here, like, there's 3 categories for bridges, and I thought I saw bridges here were number 7, 14.3 is 10, well, it's about the same number as what we've got. Okay,
Yeah,
It
a
is
lot
the
of
three
things-
numbers, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Okay.
these things are in here.
so that's
Already in the
fine,
budget.
okay.
14.3, the 36, the 24.
But to my piece here, that, Fred, to confirm then, so your sense is that the 2 surveys are the top 2.
Yes.
The wastewater treatment plant's already in the budget
Mm-hmm.
for safety. The SCADA, I'm sure, is in there somewhere. I don't know that, I forget.
It is. It is currently in there.
And the 17.5, we
Is,
said.
we've already dealt that somewhere else, so that's
somewhere
out.
else, so that's out.
So then the survey phase 1,
Of the 70 properties.
Go, let me just give my input before we
Okay.
go for a second rework. So I'm fine with the first 3, those are the bridge repairs. I suggest the $15,000 fence comes out completely. We did ask for a breakdown between the chain link fence repair at the works yard and the fence at the beach. That's not been forthcoming, so I suggest we just take it out entirely. Why do I say some of this? Because I'm cognizant of the reality of getting jobs done. We can pretty much do one at a time, and we over budgeted $200,000. Now, some of that was for staff costs that never happened, and so on and so forth. A lot of public works projects were budgeted for 2015, and they didn't happen. And luckily, we didn't tax for them. This year, we're talking about taxing for them. I'd be very, very, very disappointed if we tax for a project that didn't happen. So my suggestion is we take out the $15,000 fence entirely.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion is that we take out the $36,000 survey for the Ocean View Road repair entirely. It's been patched, or is about to be patched, has been patched. Patched. It's going to last another year. We can only do one project at a time. It's already March. I suggest that comes out entirely. I'm fine with the $24,000 for the Ocean View Road culvert, which is culvert and ditch, which, just for reminders, is that half-U corrugated drain along the side of Ocean View that is causing, Bayview, sorry, that's causing,
Bayview, yeah.
the Bayview one, that's causing all kinds of ructions. That is associated with a $139,000 project, second last on this list, on the next page, which the IC didn't opine on, Fred.
Oh, this one, yeah.
Be that as it may, just to tie those two together, I would say we need to do that. That's a project that's been identified for 10 years as being fairly high priority. If I give any credence to the IMP as it stands today, it is their warning that this is a very serious project. However, I would say that 139 should be 120.
Yeah, I think
I think the IC hasn't dealt with it for this year because it's anticipated for 2017.
Well, it's in this.
No, it's
Yes, it
moved.
was, but it said 139 impact on 2017 capital budget if not allocated in 2016.
Right.
But we haven't
So
moved
it's,
it.
that's the deleted
This is-
list.
We haven't moved it. This is dead, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
the deleted.
Well, the reality is that if we let the contract for this project, the $24,000 contract, in let's say mid-May,
17, yeah.
it would take 2 months to get done. Let's say 3 months. That's June, July, August. We would have time to do it. And summer is a good time to do drainage projects. But then we could do a rebudget if the project was
We
ready.
could, and we do have the opportunity for some of these projects to use the gas tax funding. And it is a draw from reserves, but it is money that is specifically for these purposes.
And there may be some miracle grant funding that comes up between now and then when we have this shovel ready, this $24,000 shovel ready plan ready. We may indeed be able to do it with grant funding money.
That's right.
Okay, so back to what I suggest is that we do the 24,000, we do the 13,000 park, and that's it. So to summarize, remove the 15,000 and remove the
What about the
36,000.
9 hiding at the bottom?
That's roof repair.
Yes,
We
I
do
think
need
we
that.
have to do that, right? I don't think we have a choice.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that was
so
well hidden. I didn't even see
For
that.
this list of 120.2, the substantive piece is the 15 you're recommending out and the 36 you're recommending out.
Well, let's just go back to that 15. I believe, and it's got something to do with the fence at the marina as well, between the
Oh, yeah,
beach
so
and the
they
marina.
split, they didn't come forward.
Didn't
with
come
the
forward.
Well,
L.
they reduced it though. She's now quoted just on a chain link fence for public works.
So that
And
can
renovation.
wait. That's just around the works yard.
Right.
The
I
back
think
of the
it was
works
a
yard.
security issue.
It is a
just the
security
back
issue,
of
but
it.
it's going to have to remain insecure for 15 grand for now.
What,
Why?
s-
Because there's high potential that the works yard could potentially move in the next few
So
years.
Pam, the 15 grand was just for the works yard?
It says chain link, it had been reduced.
It was 30,000, I believe.
It was, sorry, yeah, it was 35. We reduced it by
Yeah.
20. It was 35 and we reduced it to 15, just mainly for public works. And the one location at the Lions Bay Beach Park.
Yeah.
Do
So
you
I
have any
suggest
other security in place there, like alarm system or anything like that?
Haley, sorry?
There's no alarm system, there's a camera that's pointed towards the fuel and then another camera that's pointed at the gate, but there's no alarm. There's
what is that signal? I've been meaning to ask this for a long time. Where does that video go to?
The works office, public works manager's office.
Is it recorded
That I don't know. I presume so, but I don't know for how long. I don't know how long they
Yeah.
go back and forth.
and reviewed?
That would be a question for the public works manager.
Yeah.
There has been a break in there before.
Yeah, once. Yeah. Yeah. That's why the cameras.
Nope, the cameras were there.
They cut the fence.
The cameras were there before the break.
Yes, it's interesting. In years past, in other administrations, they used to have this big hairy dog that lived there.
Yeah.
Didn't used to get too many break-ins.
What does a dog cost?
You can find them on the highway, they just run up and down, we'll just take them.
So my concern would be that we're spiting ourselves to save a buck on security here without really fully understanding the implications.
We certainly don't understand the implications. The reports have been asked for 3 months, so it's time. We have to decide tonight.
May I?
Please.
I'd be interested to find out what the implication for insurance was now that we've just recorded that we know there's a problem with the fence and we're not going to...
Is there a problem? I still don't know that. Do you know that?
Yes,
I presume that's why
the
it
fence
needs
needs
fixing.
replacing. There's holes in it. It's falling down. It needs replacing.
Perhaps now we know about it.
Well, we know something. You know that? You know it's got holes in it? $15,000 to fix? I should be in the fencing business.
It's a big area. And a location at Lions Bay Beach Park. I believe there was a fencing issue there too.
But that's not in the budget.
Both are. 15 is for both.
15 is for both.
Yes.
Oh, Lions Bay Beach Park. Okay.
Is
it's
it-
for-
the only chain link at the beach park is at the top between the railway line and the beach.
thought we were originally talking about all the wooden stuff falling over and stuff
We
like
were,
that.
but
So, actually, there is no chain link up at the top. There's nothing where the stone wall is. That's just trees there.
is it?
Yeah, the far end of the sack race is a wooden wall. All the way around the beach along the marina side is wood.
Okay, well, it's a 1% tax increase for something we don't know what we're spending on. It's just, it's skater wiring again. Okay, we'll leave that one for now. No further information.
Just, if I may, just, Fred, can you weigh in on this $36,000 to do a counter?
Oh, that was for research and whatnot to get shovel ready for when we would get grant funding for the Ocean View.
Well, I know what it is.
You know, I'm all for getting shovel-ready plans for the upcoming
That
grant.
don't cost anything.
But I'm going by experience that we have not been able to spend our planning money in time, let alone execute the projects.
So you're saying we couldn't get the survey done for Bayview and Ocean View in the same year with maybe two different
I
companies?
think Carl's saying we could spend the money, have the stuff, but that history has shown we're not in a position to do two projects at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those where I don't give necessarily credence to the number that comes out of the IMP. $36,000 for a 200-meter culvert replacement seems a bit high.
Well, I share that opinion with you, and in fact, most of the IMP numbers, I think, are on the high side. And I would hope and expect that staff would negotiate far better prices than what you're offering.
Yeah, but the problem is if we were making provision for a higher number, we have to tax for
You
it.
taxed for it
Yeah,
today.
that's true.
You know, I'd be much more comfortable taxing for an $18,000 number, sure. That sounds more like the speed for the kind of thing that we're talking about. I mean, there's road cammering, drainage, guttering, and all that stuff to come with it. And you're not going to get much for 18, maybe 20. But 36, too rich at this stage of the game, especially as we've patched the hole.
So under that thinking, you're thinking the 24 is too high.
No, the 24 is a much bigger project.
Okay, so you like that number, you just don't like the 36.
I just don't like the 36.
Okay.
Peter?
So just going back to the fact that these numbers increased from what they previously were, and the reason they increased was because AECOM came back to the Public Works Manager and said, based on recent experience and what we've seen in the field, these numbers need to go up. This is where it's going. This is what we think is a more accurate number. So they're telling us because that's what they're seeing. So we can disbelieve it or say it's too high, we don't like it, whatever the case may be. The professionals are telling us that's what it costs to the best of their knowledge. So I just wanted to reiterate that comment.
Well, unless the $15,000 that they originally told us, also as professionals in a plan, was a complete guess or placeholder, you know, that's quite a range, a $15,000 to $36,000 estimate.
It could be supply and demand, and a lot of people are doing projects right
Yeah.
now with the infrastructure dollars that are out there, and
Just
the engineers are
surcharging.
charging more. I don't know what the
And I
reason
think it occurred
is.
too that these numbers were released where they had been reviewed, the plan had been reviewed by the next level, and it was something that was caught by the next level, I guess, with a broader experience on what this cost. Because I had asked the Public Works Manager about it as well. Why the increase, it was something that got missed in the first draft, was they felt the numbers
That may
were
be,
low.
so it may very well be that 36 is the right number, but it's too rich for us, seeing as we've fixed the problem for another year.
Fred, you can opine early because I'm going to ask the same question when Jim's here tonight. I mean, I've got 3 infrastructure members here. I mean, it's 60 grand's a big number. Everybody likes 24 more than they like 60. So if you, Carl's thesis, quick point is that it costs too much. He struggles with the value for the dough. And his second point is the ability to do 2 projects, and between all the terrorism and the Super Tuesday, it was hard to figure out what the feds were doing after 1 o'clock today.
Mm-hmm.
So don't know, but the issue ultimately is if you're trying to get shovel ready, do you do
Well, that's the
this-
third counterpoint. Is
That's the third. Do you
we
do
also
it
need
now,
shovel
or
ready
do you
plans.
wait a year and hope that the
And that was the
deficits
intent of putting them
continue?
in here, was to
Yeah.
have the shovel ready.
I also point out that there's $10,000 infrastructure planning grants, and if this isn't a drainage project, I don't know what is. And infrastructure planning grants are specifically targeted at
All
drainage.
right,
Well, if I could add to that, to answer your question, is...
before I ask it again.
Yeah, I'll have the same answer. I agree with Carl, 36 to my liking is rich. To Peter's point, I could be wrong. The other thing I've felt uncomfortable with on the Ocean View one is doing chunks. I would much prefer to do the whole Ocean View in one big shot for the economy of scale, and this is not the economy of scale that I originally had in mind.
If indeed it is only the 200 meters that we're talking about. Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
But the other thing that I think is almost a convincer for me to wait would be the geospatial markers. Like, I would like to know whether the Ocean View is moving. And if we start doing something before we've got that data in, then it's wasted money.
That's a fourth very good point. Although my concept of where the data markers would go is up around the next bend, actually, not where the current culvert is, but Ocean View would seem to be the prime candidate for it.
I agree.
That's another good point.
Yeah, so I'm okay of deferring it for another year if we have to.
I could also say we could predicate that number on, stipulate that a $10,000 grant be achieved, an infrastructure planning grant first, before the money gets spent.
But you're still taxing for it.
No, we tax for 24,000 or 26,000.
So you're getting 26, okay, I see.
But I like your argument better. Let's wait a year. Let's see what Ocean View's doing.
All right, well, I look forward to seeing you duking it out with Jim tonight. in
Okay.
public. And-
We
okay.
did ask for some other shovel-ready plans, but they're not here. The SCADA was removed, is that right, Pam? No, that's next. Okay, good. Okay, so let's move on quickly. Water.
No, so are we finished with page 33?
Yes, we're finished for now.
Page 33 is a dead page, Helen.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the removes.
So we're going to page 34 now.
Correcto?
And
You've got two things to talk about there, Ron.
I'm fine.
Fred?
I'm fine with everything on there.
Helen?
I'm good.
I could see taking out the SCADA. We fixed the SCADA computer. We've got reliable, robust, stable SCADA that tells us what we need to know to run our water system adequately. We can dial in from remotely. We can see both plants at the same time. Yes, it would be very nice to have all of this stuff. This is essentially just making it more robust. It appears to be relatively robust now. 18.5, that's a 1.5% tax increase. There is 18.5 we don't need to spend this year.
So you would advocate pushing it off to next year, possibly?
I hate doing it. My middle name is Skater. Did you know that?
So the description in the on table for this item says to replace failing and antiquated wired modem system.
It's the design build only. It's not any hardware.
Right, but I'm just pointing at the fragility of the current system and whether or
I'm
not
going
it's...
to pose Peter's point in the same way. I mean, this is the heart of the deal, as I understand it. And not to say that 18.5 is insignificant, but that in that water is near and dear, and this is the brain system to it, for a smallish number.
Yeah, my other resistance to this number is very high for an off-the-shelf product with no hardware. This is just the design build. This is a plan. It's not shovel ready because this is off-the-shelf stuff. There will be some measurements required for signal strength and where you might need a tower and all that stuff, because it's almost certainly that we would need cellular modems, and cellular modems, well, the nearest cellular is in bone. You don't get. You couldn't run this in my living room because I don't get cell signal there.
Fred, where do you stand on this?
Well, I was okay for it, but I think Carl brings up some valid points. It is a big number, and the longer I sit in this chair, the less I like consultants' fees. Glad Jim's not here anymore. It just seems, you're probably right. With the market the way it is, with so much infrastructure money available, it just seems like everything's being inflated. It just seems astronomical what we're expected to pay for stuff on paper.
It says design build. Generally speaking,
Yes.
design build is you're getting the product, not just the design.
Correct.
That's right.
No, it's a design build plan.
It's
what you would build.
It's what you
Keep the
get.
second modem, so the current modem is being kept as a backup, which to me suggests we'll be getting a new.
Okay, I know exactly what this is because I checked with Nikki. So it's a design. The modem is a US Robotics 9600 board modem that runs on a telephone line. We have one data line, one voice line that goes, the old deedle deedle deedle. Remember those? This is purely the design, and I've been pushing back on it at the IC level for a long time because this does not include actual radio or cellular equipment or line of sight or site-specific requirements. The line of sight is to do with the towers. It could very well be that we do this money, this report, and it says we need a $75,000 system.
Fred? Well, if Jim gave us the convenience of being here, I'd ask him or alternate, but...
Well, I'm teetering on this one.
All right, teeter until tonight then.
Yeah.
Yeah, mull it over. We're looking to cut.
My recommendation here...
Pam said get out your pens.
My recommendation here is that Fred give Jim a call as a heads up in advance of tonight so that he knows. I'm certainly going to focus on there are 3 infrastructure committee members here, so I'd like to hear what their hopefully consensus view is.
That would be a 3rd or 4th design project to be executed in 8 months.
Your rationale is sound, but you need the crew.
Okay.
I just have a question about this report. These are ranked choices.
Yes.
So SCADA was 4th for the infrastructure committee. Okay.
Again, that was my opinion at the time of the writing.
Okay.
Yeah, if I was to spend around that round number, I would prefer to have done zone metering. But that's already not made the cut.
No, it has. We're doing it. It's just we're absorbing it in the water budget.
Oh, we are?
Yeah. So it's being done.
That pleases my heart.
Does it? Good.
Yeah.
We're getting some right.
Moving on to sewer, no change.
Fred?
I'm okay with that.
Yep. Helen?
Good with that.
Me too. Okay, so that's fine. We're just confused at an even higher level than the last level of confusion. So I suppose that's progress. Let's check where we are on the agenda. Pam, does that give you enough to chew on
Does?
in time for tonight?
Was
To
it
give
coming-
us a hit list?
Is it coming back tonight or to the April 5th? Or
You tell me.
planning?
What can you do?
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda for tonight. The idea was we would just, again, fine tune if there's any additional information you wanted me to get. We do have the other option of having a council strategy meeting next week, like prior to the April 5th, just to talk about the supplementals. We could get answers to questions council had.
Could we do scenarios to see
Yes.
what the implications
Yes,
would
Just
be?
run the
and
number.
we were hoping to,
You've run a number?
Just run the number, it's 9% general tax increase.
With what's in and out?
What's in and out, and so the arbitrarily pending further discussion, for reasons I'll mention later, the shift differential is out. The 5 for the beach is out. The 34 for the parking committee is out. I kept the 15 for the fence in just arbitrarily. I took the 36 out, I took the 18.5 out. And my quick down and dirty was that it would be just under 10 for a general.
On top of the 5 that we've already budgeted?
No, 5's the model, so it'd be 5 on top of the 5 for 10 all in.
Okay, and draws on reserve?
The 192.
Ah, there's the secret.
Well,
Okay. If we were to draw only the 170, what was the number, Pam? That we were going to draw last year, that we didn't
the
tax for?
179.
Is it 179, is that the number? We're talking about, let's say 2% tax difference.
2%.
So we're talking 12% instead of 10.
Thereabouts.
Okay.
For me, I think that if Carl had difference to CFO, I think with a bit of a look at the watch tonight, we could run through this again.
Yeah.
And that way we would give the CFO very clear instruction for that.
Yeah, I'm mindful. That, yeah, I'm tempted to take you up on that offer if we could run some scenarios just so we can see
Right.
the following. I mean, I don't know how many columns we'd have to have for what's in and what's out. Maybe you could do it even live. Pretty easy to build a model.
If you just reuse my sheet with
Yeah,
the thing.
just
And then, but then we can have the impact, the dollar impact of what those tax increases would be. And just
You
to
have
it
a model-
strictly to the budget.
you have a model on what X% tax increase actually drives. Well, it's very fixed. It's 11%. I mean, it's $11,000, right, per
It is,
point.
but in terms of the impact on someone who has a $500,000 place, a $1 million place, a 1.5 million, we looked at that analysis last
Yeah,
year
yeah.
so that you understood the exact dollar
I
value.
think for that's a nice to have at this moment. I think council's going to drive to the number.
Everybody's tax will go up 11% or 12% or 5%, as the case may be. Some cases, the absolute number is larger.
Okay, which just means something we question. I mean, we don't have to do it, but in
Yeah.
terms of,
Yeah.
just in terms if you needed more time, we could have a council strategy meeting next week just to talk about these fine.
I would like to see it in
Yes,
black and white, to be honest. I would like to know what we're actually talking about because there's a lot of we're going round and round iterative way, so that's good. But we still don't know what the bottom line is in terms of the political impact, which is the tax increase that we're talking about, and the draw-in reserves, which is part and parcel of the same thing. Helen, you look like you have something to observe.
No, I just listening.
Okay.
Carl, for me, I could do this quickly. I think we're pretty close on this one. But Jim's missing, needs to weigh in on this one. And certainly the key drivers are more infrastructure-y type stuff. And we also need to go to another session to.
That's true.
deal
You know,
with.
the funding issue is not only tax; it's also the draw-in reserves. And maybe I'm more conservative a year in, but I'm less sanguine about the amount of reserves I'm prepared to draw.
So your call, where you want to go. We can delay or do a special or.
Okay, well, we don't have to decide that now. So let's move on for now. Everybody good with that? Okay, good. So reports, staff, mayor, council committees for CSC level stuff. Anything? No. New business? There is none. Public questions and comments? Good. Can I have a motion that the meeting be closed to the public under the authority of the Community Charter Section 91C and G? Thanks. And a second? All in favour of closing the meeting as stated and opposed? That carries.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, it's 10 to 6 and we've come out of closed and the next order of business is
1:45. 10
Okay, I'll
to.
see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Reporting out of the closed portion of the meeting, nothing to report, and a motion for adjournment. Second, on Peter's insistence that a second is required. All in favour, opposed, carried.